Will we rise for the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Can you call the roll for me, please?
I'll do that.
Mr. Bento.
Present.
Mr. Leonard.
Present.
Mr. Souza.
Present.
Ms. Epke. Present.
Present, Donna Cook.
Madeline Odell. Present. Nancy Driggs.
Present.
Sorry, I changed over to first names.
And we have 4 absent.
4 absent.
4 absence.
So it is
Deb Dennis,
Janik, Alex
Louise,
Cody, and
Alex
Louise Durfee,
Yep.
and Josh Mel. Are you noting those down?
Yes.
Note taker? Extraordinaire.
But Alex has been watching something.
Good for Alex.
Pat, you ready to go? Now, the platform is yours. Welcome back from vacation to Alaska.
Yeah.
I understand that there were any number of meetings that occurred while I was away. And so if there are any questions that have arisen from past issues, might as well deal with them first before going to the administrators.
Use microphone, sir, please.
Is it on? Will it work? It's on and it works.
It's on and it works.
Is it on and it works?
That one's not working.
No.
This is the one that sounds like popcorn. Right?
If you take the little doohickey on the other one, off the other one, will it work?
Got it. Mrs. Durfee is present.
It's a bit better.
I didn't know strawberry.
I'll tell you, all of it's been like this. It really is.
School committees are getting
Dog's fault. Dog's fault.
It is.
How do we know?
But you didn't fall doing it.
No.
Good things do happen.
See, my daughters we call low maintenance daughter Louise.
I trust you any day.
So as I started to say, oh, there we go, that's better. I have been away, so if there are questions that have arisen from presentations that occurred while I was away, I'm happy to try to answer them now before I go into the administration budget, because there's not a lot here, so.
Does anybody have?
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
I have a question.
It's on.
Okay. You know how you put in the budget, the net on the library? I called and spoke to Bob Bromley from the fiscal department of the state, and his answer to me was, the only way, there's a lot of ifs, the only way that we're going to get that money from the state in the same year is if the certificate of occupancy is gotten and obtained by April 30th. And hinged upon that, if the audit numbers are given to the library or OLS in May. But like he said, he'd rather err on the side of caution and put it in there because there's no guarantees that that's going to be the case. So what's your thoughts on that?
And so the question is not put in?
And put in the 309,000 from the state.
You're confusing me.
That doesn't sound like on the side of caution.
Of course. If the certificate of occupancy is not obtained by April 30th,
Right.
and the audit papers are not in by May,
Right.
we will not get the money in 2016 from the state.
Right.
So there's too many variables to take it out and just say the budget has the net in it, and that we're not going to be responsible for paying that 309.
Mr. Chair, may I?
Yes, sir.
I'm her husband, Jim Odell, and I think what my wife is trying to state is the entire bond payment, the $545,000 and change, should be listed as a budget item on the docket. You're taking extreme risk only listing the net, because we will not be reimbursed in 2016 unless a whole lot of things line up. And what that spells for the taxpayer is an extra tax bill.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yes, ma'am.
Actually, that shows up on the debt side, and I had that as a question for the treasurer as well.
Yeah.
So can we wait for the treasurer to?
Oh, no, absolutely. My wife was just bringing it up as a question to the town administrator.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But really, it's, the treasurer is the one, I think, that is responsible for the.
Well, I know, his budget had that net, that's why I'm bringing it up to him. I mean,
Or what page is it that you have it?
The library net is under the debt service. That's the treasurer's bailiwick,
Page 3.
right on the front.
Oh, here. But it's also on page 3 on fund expenses. Yeah.
Okay.
That's
So-
216,460.
So to answer the question, in presenting the debt portion, the general obligation debt portion of the budget, I did consult extensively with the treasurer, so the treasurer is a good person to start with. My personal preference is not to budget to speculative items. You budget to what is known. Some of these considerations that you brought up were not in part of the conversation between the treasurer and I, and OLIS. And those considerations were not brought forward. Beyond the shadow of a doubt, if we have to budget an additional $300,000 outlay and not recognize or realize the revenue from OLIS until next fiscal year after that, I guess it causes a kind of conundrum I want the treasurer to respond to, because then we would be over on the revenue side. We have these bookkeeping and accounting peaks and valleys, where we have 1 year where we'd have to bail a whole note, and then the next year we'd have additional resources, or we might always be staggered.
well, it was supposed to be a year behind all the time, and so all of a sudden, they're saying now, no, we're going to get it this year, so I just don't know why that changed, and I think that if it was a guarantee that we're going to get a certificate of occupancy by April 30th, well, by all means, hey, I don't want to put more money in the budget, it needs to be there, but if that doesn't happen, we're going to be in trouble. That's like big Mr. Browning said, 300,000 is a lot in a town budget. It's nothing in a state budget, but it's a lot in a town budget. So if it were him, he would err on the side of caution and put it in the budget.
Well, he's not a taxpayer in the town.
Well, no, but we, all along, we were told that we were going to have to get the money again.
Talking to somebody like that, there's always a lot of steps. If we had to go to the legislature, I'm not certain we would, but it's not really such an, interim kind of precipice. I think it's a very legitimate question, and when the treasurer gets here, but I think we have to be careful of just, anybody's going to err on the side of caution, but I think that what we just need to do is, one, get the facts and see what we do about if they're as dire as this fellow says, then...
He has spoken to Olis, then he called me back.
Yeah.
So
That's fine, and it's an appropriate question, but, there's a lot of steps between this and that, and...
Let me ask you, you might know the answer to this question. Have we ever just put in the budget and met on a bond?
Not in my memory.
Well, where the, usually what we do is put in the full amount and then show the revenues as a revenue.
Right.
Like,
Which is what we'll do.
which is what, I'm sure they will do.
Absolutely, yeah.
Exactly.
And we'll break it out in principal and interest as well. You know what I'll do, Madeline? There are, how many new libraries are in the state? There's relatively new, Smithfield, Cumberland.
They had a moratorium after ours got,
Right. So I'll look at their history and how quickly they got their reimbursement and see what the actual experience is with the notes they've already written as partial indication of what our answer might be. But I want to emphasize the fact that I don't disagree with you, that if we get a strong indication that we need to budget the full amount of the payment and not recognize the revenue to offset that until next year, then that's what we'll have to show in the budget. That's a dire circumstance, as you well recognize.
that's what we were told originally when Otis came to see us, talked us about the library, that we're going to be 1 year behind, we're always going to be 1 year behind. And all of a sudden now this year, you're saying, well, no, we only have to put the net in because, so, I mean, I'm just bringing out that up too.
One of the things that you said in your last meeting, or our first meeting here, was that you thought we were 70% funded on the police pension.
I think I was 63, but what?
Okay, and I wanted the calculation of that as to what figures did you use for the unfunded liability? Was it, the only one that I am aware of is in July 1st of 2010. And at that point, it was roughly 14.5, okay? Now, I know when Bank of America took over and was at the beginning of 14, okay? Well, first of all, my question is, do we have any updated figure other than that from, on the unfunded liability?
John, I'm pretty sure that after the last meeting, I sent to you every document that members of the Budget Committee had asked for, including the actuarial report, the most recent actuarial report for the pension, police pension. If that hasn't gotten through, Mrs. Duffy, I'll send it to you, or make it.
What is the date of the updated?
Yeah, I don't recall it.
It's
You
probably
might have, but
July,
It's very
July
recent.
1st, July 2nd. That's when they usually do it, right after the fiscal year.
Yeah, because we reviewed and adopted it at our September pension board
Yeah.
meeting.
It falls in line with the state plan.
With the FIP,
These numbers fall in line with what the state plan that was submitted to the state to fund that properly above the 60%.
we've been slightly above your required contribution from the state's plan.
I just want to see your calculation, because I also want to take a look at what Washington Trust did. I mean, I think when the monies were turned over to them, we had a market value of 8.7, roughly 8.7. And that, so I just want to see that calculation to make certain that.
Well, maybe for the next, I'm not quite sure that police pension is on tonight's.
I didn't know whether it was or not.
Yeah, but I would also like to see the actuarial report and the latest fund performance.
Yes, and if the treasurer is here, I guess, or is she coming tonight?
In theory,
In theory,
she's on the agenda.
And another issue I'm going to raise is in conjunction with this debt service, so because there's a possible way to save some money, and I think I'd like to, mention it to her, see what her reaction is.
Okay.
if it's refunding some of the school debt, refunding meaning refinancing, I've asked that question. Excuse me.
Asked it to.
Denise. And it was, now, her immediate reaction was, excuse me, we would do that after 10 years,
Whoa.
but we may not be locked into 10 years if...
Whoa. You look at the outstanding debt service, okay, and the 3,000,007 bond issue that the school financed. The first call date is May of 16, May 15th of 16. All I'm suggesting, and well, I might as well finish, but if those bonds, the principal payment, according to what I have in my information, is due at the end of June of 16, which falls within our fiscal year. If we went to Ryback now and say we are interested in refunding those bonds, to do it, refund in fiscal 2016, paying off the principal payment with new money at a lower rate, because if you look at the bonds and what we're paying, it ain't 3%, it's 4 and 5%. So there's some savings, I think, there, but I think we should start the conversation with Ryback now.
I think you're 100% correct. When I asked the question of the treasurer, I did not use that specific of a question about the high school bond. I asked about the big ones. How soon can we do this?
As I look at the bond documents, every single year in May, we can call. And these rates are really wonderful. They're 5 and 6%.
Yeah.
The 3%, we have very few bonds outstanding at 3. So each year we can do this, and of course it will be a function of interest rates and where we go. But there could be, at least we should explore, because it would mean almost a $200,000 savings in the next fiscal year.
Great.
Which would go a long way towards doing some other things.
Well, that could pay the library bond payment.
Well, you could buy some capital improvements just outright.
Well, yeah, we don't know, but I think the conversation should begin.
Absolutely.
Sounds good, Louise.
Yep.
Anything else from that before he starts?
We start with town council?
What's that?
We start with town council? And go through the line items?
What has been the practice of the budget committee in the past with the town council's budget? The administrator or the council itself?
The administrator. The big line items are the future needs and the contingency fund, so.
Sure, so they're level funded through future needs, which is the $67.99 account. And even the contingency is level funded, so.
Right, the future needs is going up to 150.
The method I'm using for accounting for how much money we may use to negotiate collective bargaining agreement is to put those funds in the future needs.
Right.
And that's why it's such a large increase, is I don't anticipate, I think I mentioned this in our last meeting, I don't anticipate reaching agreement without any economic increase, without an increase in the cost of either or both departments, police and fire. Part of the reason why I feel that way is I don't anticipate an effort at arbitration, bargaining arbitration, being successful and holding the line budget-wise. So I think we're looking to try to get to an agreement and turn it over on its merits to the council for ratification and a difficult decision about going forward. $150,000, just to give you a rough estimate of what that buys you, and the answer is not very much at all. A 1% increase in the salary line items is $15,000. the fire department, actually both, so if you just give them each a 1, we're at 30, and then we have other items that we have to catch up to with them.
And just to
Not the least of which,
just to reiterate for those who may not have been watching or listening before, all 3 of the unions are up for contract renewal this year. AFSCME, 2 of the 4. So we have police and fire this year, Teamsters next year, and AFSCME the Okay, so
following.
it's just police and fire. Okay.
Yeah. But those are by far our 2 largest departments. What's that?
This year being 15 or 16?
Their contracts will expire July 1st, 2015.
Okay.
So fiscal year 16.
Okay.
Matt, how does binding arbitration and expectations of what will come out of that jive with or become cognizant of what the unfunded liabilities we already have as a town? I don't know if that makes sense.
I think I know what you're asking, which is how does the overall fiscal constraints of any municipality be taken into consideration by the arbitrator?
It seems like, and I can't think of the towns now, I'm embarrassed, because I think there are at least 2 towns in Rhode Island now that have had significant reduction in benefits and goodies to police and fire because they've had to become aware of the overall fiscal condition of the town. So I guess that is what I was saying.
I think that's partially right. Central Falls, being in the condition that they're in, were very successful in terms of a pure management point of view, financial point of view. From a managerial point of view, it's very difficult now to recruit into Central Falls Fire Department and other places, given the way some people have been treated as a result of the city's bankruptcy. One of the things we asked Labor Council to do is to assess the criteria that will be taken into consideration by an arbitrator and apply them to our situation and give us a rough estimate of where we would come out. And I think Mr. Leonard and I maybe didn't have a direct conversation, but we were talking about the same thing in the last meeting, which is that one of the things that they take very high level, 50,000-foot level snapshots of the town statistics, median household income, and they basically throw it into a bucket called ability to pay. And the bad news I have for you is that Tiverton ranks very high on that metric, taking into consideration the statistics that they take into consideration. And I've spent not too much time, but a fair amount of time trying to find a way to look at the statistics differently, because I have a hunch from my business consulting days that the marketplace here is, the ability to pay figure is inflated from the fact that the town is a shoreline community, and we have very wealthy or large homes all along the shoreline. People may or may not reside here, but the vast majority of the residential housing stock is more normal, if you want to call it that, average. And you can pick that up in real estate data, so you can pick up the price of a median home, the value of a median home in Tiverton is around $209,000, which is significantly below what somebody would think, looking at our median household income and our quote-unquote ability to pay. But all of those things are a roll of the dice and a crapshoot, and other things that are taken into consideration, which include the history. So how many years did certain employees take a zero, and then after the zero stopped, at what pace did they grow? Was it $0.015 or $0.03 every year on the dollar? And it was the professional opinion of our Labor Council that we would not fare well in arbitration. That, as I emphasized in our last meeting, that doesn't mean that I have any sort of inordinate fear of going to arbitration. If I think it's an appropriate step, I'll recommend it. But the first thing that we want to do is try to get to a deal that we can live with, because the one thing that we would not walk away from, any arbitration that we might get in a negotiation, is an improvement of the management structure and management rights. The arbitrator will almost always completely focus on the economic side of the equation, and within the quote-unquote four corners of a possible deal. Usually they split the baby in Solomonic fashion, and that would not be a good spot for us to be in. There's no way we would ever go to the point of the initial proposals from either one of these unions. I'm not at liberty to discuss details, but numbers were large. We're not anticipating doing that. One of the things, I'm going to try to get to this as quickly as possible. The diagnosis that I have reached, and having done a very significant firefighter negotiation in Socket and done a lot of comparatives and using that experience to come to this point, we have many problems with the fire department budget, not the least of which is you limit a man to 7, but you roster 8. So no matter what you do, if you have any long-term illnesses, disabilities, FMLA, military service, you may start every shift with only 7 because you've got one who's out all the time. So if just one member of that platoon calls in sick on a regular basis because he is sick, it's $1,400 every time. You can just hear the cash machine, the cash register go cha-ching, 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 and that's how it works. And that is exacerbated by, if you get to the point where you are competing to hold on to firefighters once they get requisite level of experience, and they feel like we're under constant pressure from East Providence. They seem to poach a lot of our firefighters. Why? Because you can leave Tiverton after 5 years of experience, give up all your seniority, walk in the door at East Providence, and actually earn more money. Not a lot more money, but then the upward growth potential is significantly higher too. So effectively, Tiverton has become a place where you get really good training. You work in a small department, and you become highly qualified, and then as soon as you are in good shape to go on to a different department and earn more money, you leave. What does that do to us? It creates holes. Bring you back to that 7-man minimum, 8-person roster. When we have vacancies in the fire department, that has, first of all, a huge overtime impact. And then when you try to fix the problem, you create more overtime. Because we don't have a full-time training officer, we take our training officer off, we take him out of service, so he's only part-time on his platoon, and the rest of the week, he's training. And it takes us however many months. Chief Ward will tell you exactly how many months it takes to get a probationary firefighter to the point where he can be on the trucks. All of this metastasizes, and it shows up in your budget in one place, overtime. So when you look at future needs and you say, well, how'd you finance that? Well, you go back to the fire department overtime and you see I've slashed it. Because my plan, my proposal to the fire union is to address the overtime problem directly, and it would take almost that much money to put in place the system. The only way you make the system work is to, in the case where you have IOD, you have to backfill rows, spots on the platoon. It's expensive and difficult, but when I sit down and try to solve the math problem, it keeps coming back to me. I don't like to throw former administrators under the bus, but Mr. Steckman, at one point, the town had a 6-man minimum and an 8-man roster, and you did not have these problems. And you could afford to negotiate with your union, so.
Administrator,
yeah.
You've covered this twice now. I think we need to focus on the budget at hand.
Sure.
Yep.
Okay? Because, in a way, that's a council problem, and I'm sure they're very much aware of that issue, but it's nice to know it, but I really do think,
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, we need to stick with our budget.
So in a nutshell, this is as much money as I think it will take to address
Right.
runaway problems in other parts of the budget, and the method I'm using is I'm not putting it into those line items, I'm putting it in future needs for council to
Yep.
spend.
Yes.
Also, I do have this suggestion as we go through. You know, as you got to the next item, town administrator, instead of doing this item by item, because there's some things that don't change almost year
I
in.
agree.
Yeah.
Focus on the big stuff.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you.
And, you know, I think because we need to really move along on this.
Okay.
Right. I got a couple of questions. Are you all set, Louise? Okay, well, I wanted to ask a question about the League of Cities and Towns. This discrepancy as far as I know, because I see 9,375 and then some came to 8,088. On checking, what was paid for the League of Cities and Towns was $6,075. Why is it being, that's how much it costs, so why is there more money here?
Can I ask where you're seeing the 6,075?
No, I called and I also asked Denise what was paid, so you wouldn't see it here. I just was interested as to why this.
So in the binder, if you go to the administrator tab and you go to the 7259 line item, this line item finances the town's membership in every organization of which it is a member. The League of Cities and Towns is $6,075.
Yeah.
The Newport Chamber of Commerce is $2,755. And the Rhode Island City and Town Managers Association is $25. In the past, past administrators used to subscribe to, through the Rhode Island City and Town Managers Association, a publication that was put out, which was basically a summary of labor arbitrations and labor cases that have been heard in Rhode Island and across the country that would have an impact here. It's put out by Dan Kinder's firm. It's very expensive, and I just saw them all sitting in the file cabinet, never having been cracked open. It's $300 some odd dollars a year. I cut that out. But I left the rest in. I know that there are folks that are very critical of League of Cities and Towns, or the Chamber, take your pick. Shortly after, probably several months ago now, the League asked me to join the executive board, and so I did. I'm on the executive board. So is just about everybody else. I mean, it's about half the members, half the city and town managers across the state are on the board, but I made the cut. The League provides us with several services, of which, you may go back and forth on the value on. I will advocate to a point, but not to a crazy point over it. The leading value that's created here is keeping us all together so that we can go and buy things together. We need to do that, and I agree with Mrs. Black, we need to do that together with the school committees. And we'd be a much stronger customer. We'd actually be 3 times bigger as a customer. But to this point, we've gotten to a point where at least the League negotiates for electricity. We've put together an organization that I believe is going to be very helpful with us in purchasing and doing away with a lot of the unnecessary expense of our streetlights. And in the formation of and management of and relationship with the interlocal trust, which is probably the most important group that we're a member of, because the trust is a very significant part of our economics as a town. But it's not in this line item. The Chamber of Commerce is currently, the current president is a Tiverton business person. The state of Rhode Island has given its blessing to, and private entities have provided the funding for, a regional economic development effort for Newport County. The town managers, town administrators of the communities in Newport County participated in screening a consultant to design an economic development organization that will be funded either through private grants or through its own operations to support tourism and economic development for the entire region. So that's those two line items. That comes out to $8,880 after I cut the unnecessary labor publication.
Well, I called, there was 3 cities or towns that didn't belong, so I called, it was Central Falls, Woonsocket didn't get back to me, and anyway, I talked to...
Woonsocket, Johnston, and Central Falls are not members of the league.
Mr. Policina, Mayor Policina. I talked to him, and he said it's a total waste of money. Anything that they offer, they haven't met an expense they don't like, and they don't do anything about the mandates. And if he wants anything done, he uses the state and representatives to bring forward what's good for the town. So he also saves money on electricity with various other people that come in and offer lower rates. His advice to me was to not belong. Total waste of money. He hasn't found it to be helpful at all. He was in it for a while, and he said this is just a waste of money. And he hasn't found that he misses it at all either. So, and the other thing I want to say is that as far as saving money, I have been in contact with a firm that's a consult that my daughter used for her company. They come in on a contingency basis, and they look at your operation and give you what would be helpful to save money on, depending on what you want to do, whether it's the operation of all your phones, systems, software, and all that. You can go even further. They put out a plan. It doesn't cost you anything. If you do the plan, because it's going to save you a lot of money, they can do it townwide on everything: trash, paper, supplies, everything. And it's just 50-50 on what you save. They right now are doing the Newport Historical Society and the mansions, and they're so pleased with what they have saved that they just continue using this overview firm. My daughter was very happy with them, and they've saved lots of money. So I was hoping that we could maybe have him talk to the town, or you could see what we could save and with our operations in this town and have a lot of savings. But in my view, I just think it's kind of a waste of money for cities and towns. On the other hand, I would like to see us look to the consultant overview and see if we can save a lot of money. And he can do it with the school department, he can do it with DPW, he can do it with anything. This is what they do.
Mr. Chairman.
Can I take that one on? Let's try to stick to the budget, because then we'll get into areas that aren't ours, for one thing.
Well, he was discussing how to save from some things, paper and supplies, and I just wanted to
We're not in the business of recommending consultants. Also, I've worked in Johnston, and anybody who's worked for Mayor Policina knows that he is one of the absolute characters in the state of Rhode Island. Very good character. I don't mean that negatively, but
colorful. That's the word.
Colorful is a very good word, and he absolutely marches to the beat of his own drum. So you got one town out there that's not in favor of, in love with League of Cities and Towns, but I don't think that that's enough for us to move out of that just based on his reaction.
There are 36 cities and towns that are in it.
Right.
Yes.
So, in 2 of the 3, I think Central Falls particularly, given the ringer they went through, they cut everything. The credit is so poor, they can't participate in collective bargaining with, collective negotiations with us, because they can't get the credit to buy the things we buy. So,
But when it's all said and done, it's a council policy decision whether to belong. Coincidentally, I happen to agree that that's a good decision on the council's part, but that doesn't mean anything. You know, that's their decision. But can we keep moving
Yeah, can I just,
through the rest of the budget?
Sally.
Just quickly, I wanted to speak on behalf of the schools, because since they've had the skills gap in the education and the business community coming together, the Chamber of Commerce has been incredible. They pay for school buses for us to go places like electric boat and everything else. And if I go to a meeting down there and we're not members, I have to pay to go. So that year, when it was in the budget to take it out, League of Cities and Towns and Chamber went here, they asked me if they had made a decision yet, and if they had, I would. But I think as far as the schools go, they're going to make it.
I think that's short money for, I think the advantages you get out of being a member of those, of organizations like that, be it on the school side or the town side. But that's a town council issue, I think, that we need to move on from.
can I just say bottom line here? I just want to, get the bottom line. Last year, or this current fiscal year versus your proposed budget, it's $2,000 less.
yeah.
And of that $2,000 less, you cut a few things here, you moved some of the grant stuff over the planning, and then you increased the employee manual maintenance, which we need to have an employee manual. I don't find in your backup whether or not that is money for a consultant or advisor, or how is that money going to be spent?
So that
Just
work,
quickly.
that work is in progress, so we're using paychecks to help us write this manual, and we use their HR service
Right.
at the present time. As soon as the manual is done, I'm going to discontinue that relationship. This was understood when we entered into it. But then we'll have to do a little bit of maintenance each and every year to make sure that we stay up to date with all these changes, and nothing gives us fits more than Obamacare, because it's the definition of an employee and all the other things that go with it.
It's been the trouble for a long time before Obamacare came into
Yeah.
existence.
Again, I consulted with Labor Council. I want to save money every year we can. You can look at, see what I did to my budget. $3,000 for supplies, I took down to $750. Grants, permit applications, I took from $2,000 to $0. Photocopy release is not much I can do about, it's more in it. Internet service, the cost went up, but this is put in my budget. Computer service remains the same, and all the education I need I can pretty much get for free. So I zeroed out that line item.
What was the difference in automobile expenses?
I just really would like to have an answer as to
So on the manual,
additional cost being paid for. Is that, are we getting a consultant? And I'll tell you,
it is.
the reason why I ask is there has been talk for many years that we need somebody in town hall with human resources experience, and there have been discussions ongoing about lending or finding personnel for the town administrator's office who not only would be an assistant, but also would have some of that human resource capability. So has that idea been moved off to the table to have a consultant come in and help with this HR manual?
No, the manual, the consultant is going to give us the boilerplate of the manual and then tailor it to our existing situation here. Most of our personnel policies, if you will, date to the early 1990s. At least the bound version, 1998, I think, is the most recent update. So in many ways, whether it's harassment policy or other policies, they are not fully buttoned up to defend us as a town. Those policies need to be in place, and then everybody has said, I've read that and I understand it, in order to defend the town from any potential liability. So Labor Council strongly advises that we finish this project. It languished. What happened, I'm afraid, is the timing was bad. It came to the council in late 2013 when there were other problems in town. And because it wasn't polished, it was just really rough boilerplate language, it was pushed aside and, go work on this some more. So it's been on my task list, and we're accomplishing it now. I'm meeting this week to keep moving forward on this.
Okay, so that's the work being done with paychecks, and this will
That's
pay for a
correct.
consultant for ongoing updates.
Yeah, probably paychecks, but a much stripped-down relationship from what we have right now. The automobile expenses, somebody mentioned that? Yeah, the prior administrator used a car. He was a Tiverton resident, so it made sense. It doesn't make sense for me. I use my own vehicle. I almost never ask the town to be reimbursed unless I travel somewhere. If I go to East Providence for an interlocal trust discussion of Obamacare, for instance, it's whatever, 20 miles each way. I ask for the mileage to be reimbursed to me, but when I drive around town, no, I don't ask for it. I think it's silly, to be honest with you. I don't like mayors and administrators using cars. So, what's next?
I'm still amazed you gave up that old Crown Vic.
I know, huh? Why would a guy who drives a Mini want to drive a Crown Vic? I clearly have no value for a Crown Vic.
Would you even be able to?
I would. I grew up on the farm. I can drive a lot of things, but...
Town hall operating expenses. There's an increase of about 6,000, and it seems to be in building maintenance.
I'm trying to scrape together enough money to address some roof problems, is the bottom line. I'm going to agree 100% with Mrs. Odell that this would be a much easier book to navigate if it was in alphabetical order.
Thank you very much.
So chalk it up. It's a win for you, Madeline.
So next year, you're going to get everybody's book like mine, right?
Oh, Lord have mercy. Do you think I'd upset the accountants by changing the number system? This is at the end of the budget. Oh, it's up front.
Has the 7,000 been spent on building maintenance for this year?
For this year, no. We spent about $2,500 to fix the problem caused when the truck ripped the wires off the side of the building, took all the rotten wood up there down with it.
It's about half spent at the end of December.
Yeah.
Is the roof,
Doesn't get much.
would the roof be a capital expense
Yes.
as opposed to a department budget type thing?
I thought I saw
I mean, I don't know what the definition is of capital. It varies in every single community.
Yeah, and I haven't found one that's, really working for me. I know
Town hall operating expense.
Hello.
Thank you, Andrew. There's another one down there.
Can't take you anywhere.
I know, can't take me anywhere.
But your timing is impeccable.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So there's no roof in this. This is for pest control, septic system pump outs, furnace service contract, and if there is anything left, which I would presume is the additional 7,000, would be for the replaced sound system. Because
Right.
everything else is standard fare. So if we need to have a new roof, then we'll see a new capital item next year, because I am a firm believer that we want to keep capital items where capital items live and breathe, so we know when capital projects have been
He's just doing a
completed.
patch to get them up.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Where it is, does shouldn't keep them from doing that.
Right, and that's my concern. If I can't, I need enough money to fix the roof, at least in the value of the leaks are, and not go forward with a full capital project for it.
Then it would come out of here.
Well, come on, okay.
But it's good to know when those things happen, so that when we do need to have a roof, we know what was done and not done.
Next item?
Legal.
Yeah. I have to abstain. It's a reduction?
Is the solicitor not here to defend himself? I don't want to wax poetic here. I have my eye on this part of the budget. And this is, as far as I'm concerned, an awful lot of this comes to the discretion and the viewpoint of the town council. The solicitor provides legal advice primarily to the council and to the planning board. As you know, on Monday night, we will open 14 applications for different parts of the legal services contract with the town. We got 14 applications. I have a particularly strong point of view, which I will keep my powder dry, but my personal view is I want to see whoever our solicitor is going forward attack, litigate, somehow reconcile our reality of what the town can afford to do and the fights we can afford to have with what is put into this litigation effort. You know, I think that there are things that we really need to fight about, and there are things that we really should not be fighting about and spending all the money for the fight. And I think our priorities have been sidetracked. I think we have far too many zoning matters in litigation, and that's just my
Really a proposal matter.
But you asked me,
I
so...
said you've reduced it by 10,000, and that's...
Also, having served on the council for many years, oftentimes the solicitor is engaged in defense. And once a council decides they're not going to defend the neighbors, you're going to have problems on the town council. So I can tell you whether it's X or Y, I can't think of a case that the town recently brought on its own that is not as part of a defense, whether it's site-ready or this kind of thing. These are big items in this town. So I would be extremely careful of what you're saying.
Yeah. But it doesn't translate into too much unless you get the prosecutions. It's the only line item I really took a shot at.
Well, yeah. What was your rationale for that? I just looked through December, we've spent 10,000. So a little less than half of what was budgeted, and you're cutting it to 18,000. So I just am interested in the rationale.
We pay for our prosecution presence through our solicitor, who has a markup on this. I believe we can hire the same prosecutor for less money. On information and belief.
Say it again? I don't get it. I mean, I just don't get it. I don't mark up on, I need other.
It's a markup.
I just need other, so.
I mean, is there time charges? Yeah, well, of course there's time. I mean, there's, any attorney is going to charge a particular thing, whether it's one of the 14 or not. There's time charges.
What the administrator is saying is that the prosecutor is working for the larger firm. The firm bills Mr. Administrator, and the firm adds a little bit to the actual payment that they bill to the... Thank you, Mr. Leonard, that is correct. That's what I'm trying to say. I don't know whether that's true, but...
So you don't know if that's, you know if that's true?
They had a fee, I believe, for the corporation.
I mean, yeah,
Yeah, maybe I'm really dense, I'm just not getting it.
Well, I think what Cecil is saying is that they independently may have an independent contractor do their prosecutions, whether they are paying or whether it's a she that submits the bills, and it's a pass-through. I haven't seen those bills.
Yes, I don't know why, but that's just what the administrator is saying.
Thank you, that's what I needed, okay.
Or what your ambitious administrator and police chief may have done is asked the lawyer, would he work for us for him or rate, and gotten the answer yes.
So your feeling is that of this 14, we can do this for less money? How much have we, what is the 5-year average on this? Prosecutions, the 5-year average is $24,000 a year? And you want to cut it by 5,000?
Yep.
Which would be like 20%?
Yeah, almost a fifth.
So you want to cut it by 20%.
That's right.
But yet the Labor Council line stays, just so you know, Labor Council is a big bugaboo of mine. Because it seems to go up and down so randomly. And we rarely, except I think 1 year in the past 10, have spent what was allocated. So I see that this is level funded for the labor, where we've spent 9,000 of it so far, but I understand we're going into negotiations. So if we didn't have negotiations last year and we funded it at 30,000, and we are going to have negotiations this year and we're level funding it, I guess I'm kind of, so 30,000 is enough for negotiations.
Because they have $150,000 in the contingency, too.
No,
Do you see?
I'm trying to put this in a nutshell for you, is that a lot of the labor part of the legal services budget is driven by how your administrator uses legal counsel for labor. And I thought 30,000 was adequate. I'm keeping an eye on what we're billing as we go through and the amount of time I engage labor counsel in different aspects of the negotiations. I use him less in negotiations, and I'm using him more for potential disciplinary matters, because that's the approach I'm taking overall to everything. I'm not going to back away from items that may need to be arbitrated with problem employees. So I'm using labor counsel more for that and less for negotiations.
There are probably two major things. One was the Robert Martin thing this past year, and the other may have been the fire department investigation. Did that come out of labor council budget?
No, ma'am. I believe that came out of council's either contingency or unfunded liability, because that was a $30,000 bill all on its own. And came at the end of the year.
Wait a minute. It didn't come out of contingency.
No.
They didn't have it, no.
They didn't have it.
No.
I don't know what.
But anyway, that,
Well, I don't have my usual trail of 10-year numbers that I used to bore everybody with. Suffice it to say, I find it's a little bit of a non sequitur that we're going to cut back on the prosecutions but leave the labor council the same.
Except that.
When we spend the prosecution money and we've never spent the labor council money.
Yeah. I mean, the entire account causes me trouble. I know people don't want to have a conversation about policy matters, but the policy translates into these numbers. So I'm deeply concerned with legal accounts that are flat consistently over many years, because I don't believe the activity is that flat. And in some cases, I don't believe the activity should be that flat. So, I recognize there's a bundle of services we're buying for land use attorney at $16,000 a year that's in this budget. But so much of what we fight about or discuss or say it needs to be amended or addressed by the council or the planning board or zoning board are planning and zoning board matters. So, wouldn't you spend 32 to save the 110 you got in litigation? That's my personal philosophy of this whole entire bundle of legal services. So I'm skeptical of how we end up with such flat numbers and how we always seem to get to that same number every year. Almost as if to say, and I'm not accusing anybody of anything, but if we're at 22, let's blow up the rest and get to 499 or whatever it is. The nature of legal work is that sometimes you have big cases, sometimes you have small cases. There should be more volatility in these numbers, and there isn't. So I think we need to the council and the administrator need to sharpen our pencils in our relationship with our attorneys and make sure we get them the best value.
Okay.
And if we eventually decide that we are going to have this litigation, then at least we have an explanation for it.
Well, and presumably the council is on board with your thinking in the policy because they have approved this budget.
I have unfunded transfers, and there's $30,000 that was taken from the police staff salaries, and then it shows up for assist law officers for the fire department investigation. So I'm thinking that's where it came from.
Say it again, where did it come from?
It came from police staff salaries, AFSCME, $30,000. I don't know the date. All I know is that it then, on 6/30, looks like it was transferred $30,000 to the DeSisto Law Office for the fire department investigation.
So maybe we lost an administrative person in the police department and that money was used to pay for the...
Yeah.
Well, I don't know.
There were vacancies in the CCOs.
Yes.
The communications officers.
Yeah. Yep. That makes sense.
Okay.
Dave?
If I could make one observation, the last thing you want to do is save money by hiring cheap lawyers.
Yeah.
If you're going to get on a legal fight, you want to hire the best lawyer you can find. And if you start trying to save pennies, it's going to come back and bite you in the most inconvenient place. So if you're going to get in a legal situation, make sure you've got the best you can get. And I would agree with you, and I would also say you don't want to spend so much money on somebody who gets you into trouble that you end up spending even more. No. But it's a difficult balance as a consumer.
As Mr. Jakey said, almost all the legal fights start because somebody brings something against the town. As far as I know, we don't have too many aggressive municipal managers that are out picking legal fights. They normally come in.
And I agree with you, but then I will also tell you that one of the shameful things is we're not so sure we can pick fights because of these budgetary constraints.
Are you suggesting that we would just, the town would just roll over when a group of neighbors come in, and I don't care what it is?
No, it's not a group of neighbors. You can't really...
There's oftentimes where how a case will, or a person is aggrieved by an action of the zoning official, or the non-action of a zoning official, and they will go after the town. Now, it's important the town be represented.
Absolutely.
So, I don't know, from a policy standpoint, there are policies of hiring competent people to do a good job, and maybe you lessen the litigation budget. But I can tell you, just from first-hand experience, a lot of the issues arise out of the zoning matters to the Superior Court.
Mr. Chairman, if I could. My name is Joe Souza, member of Town Council. Ms. Durfee, Mr. Leonard, your point is well taken, but I think my personal opinion, and I ran for council partly on this issue, is because I wanted to see us try to mediate. Instead of going to court, let's try to settle these things before they get into the court, if possible. Sometimes I understand it's impossible if court is needed. But even with the active lawsuits, I can't talk too much about it because I guess all the discussion was in executive session, but I mean, there is an active, we're trying to, start to settle some of these suits and get them out of the courts and get them back into people talking face to face. See if, and it maybe have to be some compromise here and there by the town's position and stuff. but that's what mediation, I guess, compromise is. But point well taken on, our attorneys always have to be top-notch, because the effect is, we know what the effect can be.
I don't know that Rhode Island has really moved very far forward. I know over in Massachusetts, there is a lot of use of alternate dispute resolution organizations, which across the border is very cost-effective. And I just don't know whether that's a popular development in Rhode Island. I would think it would be, but I don't have any first-hand knowledge. And
It does require good, effective legal service in that mediation process, but you're right, Rhode Island has moved considerably into that area.
And then that would feed into Mr. Souza's comment about, can we work this out without any open court, which is always a good objective. Not always achievable, but should be the first class.
Sometimes you have to bend a little to get, everybody gives a little. That's just it.
I'll strike the last word by saying that it's a matter of philosophy as a consumer of legal services. And one of the things we want is, the best attorney possible to help you identify areas where you have difficulty winning enforcement cases and help you amend your code so that you have a stronger, more clear position. And work with your legal processes. Now, we just went through a land use process improvement ad hoc committee that I have once a month. An entire set of rules miraculously has now appeared and been reviewed by the municipal court judge to treat, and it's all going to go before the council, so it's not a done deal. But the recommendation of the council is that zoning matters be considered civil instead of criminal as a matter of procedure, because it completely changes burden of proof, service, all the rest of it. Those are the kinds of things we need to get our attorneys to help us with. Help us win more cases before they even start by doing more buttoned up. And that's why I'm putting my thumb down. But I want to see more of that. More of that should occur.
Which is exactly why we're working on the handbook for the employees, because that's where it all starts. If you don't have that in order, you're asking for trouble.
Yes.
What's your next one?
What's your next line item?
Audit of town accounts.
Yeah, I guess technically at law, the administrator audits the treasurer, correct?
The council.
The council
audits the
treasurer. I just sign all the paperwork.
You can come back, Mrs. Odell. We miss you. We're done with legal.
Get
back to work!
Get busy sitting with
Long story short, we went out to competitive bid for audit services this year. So last year, the Financial Town referendum budgeted $26,000. The town was able, through competitive bidding, to lower that price to this $22,000 figure for a 3-year contract. There's an inflator. It will go up each year, but not by very much.
So we have a new audit firm coming in?
Yes, we do. We have Sig Sahadi, of Sahadi Hague.
26,000, is that what I'm looking at?
Yes, 26,000 this current year, 22,000 next, and it's also joint with this, the school also pays for a portion of this total. I mean, they don't pay a portion of the 22, but...
They pay for their portion of it.
Exactly. Next is the infamous employee special retirement, account 5261.
The number hasn't changed.
I love the backup. There has been no change in this account for many years.
And that's about what it is.
Yep.
16,500.
Yep.
Any other questions?
It's, I believe, 2 employees
Yeah.
that have a special retirement account, a different retirement account. It's personnel issues that the Budget Committee is not privy to.
We're not privy to.
It's personnel.
It goes way back. I want to look at
It goes way back.
Mr. Leonard and Mrs. Durfee to explain who these people.
They're few days for me.
Does it? So my promise, so yeah. The only promise we'll get out of me tonight is I'll make sure these people are still alive before we put the 16.5.
I was going to say, if they're alive, that money's going to be in the budget.
I'm writing it down, make sure they're alive.
Let's move on.
Insurance is next?
Yes, they are.
So we have, I presume, actually, I can't presume.
No, you can't.
I shouldn't presume, because don't we have good numbers for part of the insurance?
How did the house go up?
We don't have good numbers.
Okay.
So the trust, I've been told to manage my expectations to sit in the trust in March or April with rate quotations for the year. That's when I saw them when I first started at the beginning of last year. It was deep into March. They were all apologies. So what did I say here? I take the same approach as the school department on health. So I'm at 2190, and I'm at the group insurance health line, so that's 5260 through 69.
So it says, your backup says 4%?
4%, which is the same approach Mr. Fiore took at the school department. I believe that is a high number. We have, in the last 2 years, been hovering right around zero, which, or, a little bit under zero and then a little bit over zero. I will tell you something, that is absolutely unheard of. Unheard of. Health insurance rates increase nationally at a rate of about 8% per annum. By participating in the trust, we pool our risk with other cities and towns. We've had our first quarter of very significant claims experience, which puts us over the median. So I do anticipate seeing a rate increase. I'm not entirely sure it'll be as high as 4%. I hope it isn't. The other thing to note is that for many years, I don't know if it was the council or my predecessor or whoever, there were surpluses in the insurance accounts, both for the town of Tiverton and for the Tiverton School Department. And the town had the option to have the trust retain those funds for future stabilization of rates. And so both the town and the schools still have accounts to that effect. And if we see a very large increase, I would expect to try to apply some of that existing balance with the trust to offset those rates and smooth it out for the taxpayers of the town.
So you're saying this is a guess on your part, or?
On health, yes.
It's always a guess this time of the year.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no...
So health is a pure guess. Liability, property, workers' compensation, we're on a pretty linear trend of 8% per year, which is responsible to budget to the linear trend.
And the dental is flatline?
Pretty much, yeah.
Because, well, I'd have to do math in my head, which I'm not really good at, but it looks like as of the end of December, dental for retired is about 12,000. The dental for active is 34,600, so maybe together 12 and 34, 46, maybe 47. So that comes out about
Just about.
Yep.
There's a lot of rate stability. The volatility we experience here is just comings and goings in the employment base of the town and claims experience. It tends to be much more stable.
Social Security?
We have one more account here, it's life.
Oh, yeah, if you want to.
I'm actively pursuing reducing this account.
That's allowed.
I'm hoping to get it done for fiscal year 2016, so I'm hoping to come back to this number and reduce it. Bottom line is this. The town has offered in the past to employees who retire the option to continue their life insurance at their own expense, but they pay the same rate. So our provider is giving us one rate for both active and retired employees, regardless of their age. Now, if you know the life insurance business, what that means is you're overpaying for your active employees. And we are, at this point, way over the top. Our individual premiums are so much higher than we would be in the market. So I don't want to screw up the numbers by being too precise. I would tell you that we have one of the firefighters saves the town a lot of money by going through their national lead to buy life insurance, that the coverage is superior to that offered by the town for substantially less. I think they're paying about $20 per covered life, per beneficiary, and we're paying something like $32. Because really what we're doing is we're covering people to their demise, and the demise is inevitable, and so every year we're having this rate experience, it just keeps getting higher and higher and higher.
Is this life insurance, I thought this life insurance was just for department heads.
No. The department heads have $100,000 in coverage. All the other employees at the town have $50,000 except for the firefighters who are at $60,000.
So this life insurance is for every town employee?
That's correct.
This line item of $40,000 is life insurance for every town employee?
And some retirees.
And some retirees?
That's correct.
But don't the retirees reimburse? They pay the town rate, but they send the treasurer a check to cover.
Yes, they do, but they don't pay the rate for their actuarial.
Understood.
Yeah.
So it's good for them.
Awesome for them.
Right. Well, and for the town's portion of contribution, they're affecting, right?
Mm-hmm.
Our rates are higher than they should be.
Yeah, I think we're paying about $32 for 50,000 in coverage a month, and we should be closer to 25. So I've met with people who do this, they're going to get quotes. We have to go out to bid for this. We can't go through everything through the purchasing process. But it is helpful to have quotations to know what does the universe look like and what types of policies would be offered. So I've done that. I've started my research already.
And that will presumably affect the contract?
Maybe not, because the contract is that we provide them with life insurance. It doesn't say we provide them life insurance through such and such a person. It's provide them with insurance with a coverage of X.
I guess what I'm saying is the 40,000 is, I mean, it's not going to change, that estimate is not going to change tomorrow.
No.
Social Security?
I would say, so what this is, as we all know, this is an output more than anything else. It's one of the last numbers we can finalize, because it's a function of compensation.
Right.
And so this number will probably change constantly until you lock in your final budget docket, because once we decide where everybody's going to be paid, and even then, we will need some of future needs. As part of that $150,000 isn't all going to go to salaries, it has to cover all the loading that goes along with any salary change in any contract, which would include Social Security. So I fully anticipate that if wages go up in either one of the public safety departments, that the Social Security number would also go up in its final. But we're budgeting this to 7.65% of covered wages.
Why would because the department request has personnel in there and whatnot that you're not recommending. That's why the department head request is 30,000 higher than what you're recommending.
For
Social Security. $2015 budget is 508,333. We're recommending a decrease to 507,844.
But you're getting a slight decrease because of, so your wage patterns, you have had any number of senior people leave, or more senior people, so first class firefighters leave, be replaced by probies. When a new employee comes in who may be covered by the AFSCME union, they start off at $3 below the contract rate, and they step up to the contract rate as they go along. So those savings filter through to this line item. It's not very much, $2,000.
Right, but I guess what my question is, why would the department head request be almost 533 versus your recommended 508?
That just might be a mistake.
Generally, it's all right.
Because the department head really kind of would be me, and so, yeah. So it's my number, so I'm going to stick to the number I've calculated here, which is the 506.
Well, unless it's, department head request is, the chief and other departments recommending to hire personnel that you're not.
How many first-class firemen left in the current fiscal year? Do you recall?
I'm going to back it out and tell you we have 2 programs right now, so we probably lost 2. And the year before was more, because you have 4 fourth-class firefighters, so it would have been 4 at that point.
So, didn't the amount of how the Social Security taxes computed, didn't that increase for the, on salary? It's over 100 and some. I thought it increased.
No, they haven't extended that. And no, they took the, 2 years ago?
No, this is more, it's either in the, read it fairly recently. I'll double check that before. But I
Increase the cap?
increase the amount you pay on. I'll just double check as to what I,
Yes, please,
yeah, I will,
because that would be news.
yeah.
Unfunded unemployment. That's what I was looking for, unemployment. How much have we spent this year on unemployment? Nothing.
As there's no change, as new members may recognize, the town is self-insured. So we have an unemployment claim, the town pays cash out of the general fund to satisfy the requirements of that claim. Your experience varies by whether or not people are legitimately able to file for a claim. It's my sincere hope that we don't have that situation, because I'm going to level funded at 10,000. The town's been bearing this risk for some time.
And unfunded liabilities, that's always an issue, if I remember correctly, of
To roll the dice.
who's going to retire.
Right.
But
This
That's a
unfunded sick
significant-
and vacation, right?
yes, it's when people retire.
Oh.
They have a certain, exactly. But this is a fairly significant reduction of 30,000. What is the 5-year on that? Well, it doesn't really matter what the 5-year is.
No, it's a very volatile account. It really depends on what circumstances there are. So how many people are eligible to retire and what is our understanding of their intentions.
So you're, okay, but you're using the 5-year average. This account is requested below its 5-year average, which is deemed to be high given 2 outlier values over the last 5 years. Contingent funding demands are contingent upon retirements or departures.
And their accruals, because
Right. If there's an above-average year of claims for these compensation items, the fallback is recommended to be covered by council contingency. Well, council contingency only has 20,000, so,
right.
and if you're cutting it by 30,000, and we need to have that 30,000, too bad, so sad. Comes out of paving.
Take it out of the budget committee member's salary account.
You can't take it out of my office supplies because I already cut that. Yeah.
But do you have a sense? Have you, I mean, do the chiefs and the department heads have a sense of?
We get a sense of who's eligible and what they're carrying with them right now, what we think their likelihood of leaving is. That becomes very personal to individual members of our workforce, but I'm comfortable
With your figure?
with 55,000.
Budget committee?
Well, it's
Walking 250. I think we should up that to 500 for next year.
Well, as long as the administrator is here, let's do streetlights. As long as he's at the table.
Well, we do need to put some more money in the kitty for the budget.
That's right.
Yes,
We up that to 500.
Can I make a motion to take the streetlights before the budget committee so that the town administrator can finish his table?
We just covered the budget committee.
Yes.
Streetlights are back in DPW?
No. It's its own line item, so 3380 account.
Yes, I know.
It's in between library and harbor master.
Exactly.
Okay, let's look at the page number.
Page, wipeout, 16, page 15, I think. It's typed over, but I think it's page 15. 155, we're upping it to 185.5, or the request is to up it to 185.5.
Page 15. I'm working from Nancy's and it. Okay.
And we've spent 87,000 through the end of December. So 185 is not,
What I don't know.
no.
Not out of line, and, we'll be absorbing some of the, next year, we'll be absorbing energy increase as well.
The electric rates.
Right. We'll also be absorbing the fact that we're in the process of analyzing our streetlight asset base for potential purchase. We have to ask for an inventory. And my friends at Grid found 30 lights they haven't been charging us for.
Oh, piddly-dee.
And so they estimate there'll be $500 per pole. So it's another $15,000 in potential billing.
Do you know who decides which lights get turned off?
Well, we went through a process before I started here, and we had both Chief Blakey and Steve Bellucci figuring out which, I think you turned off about 2% of your lights.
Yeah.
Only because there's one place in town that's a dangerous place where they don't have any lights, and I wanted to tell the proper person, I don't know what to tell.
The town administrator.
I told the administrator. Yeah. And as long as I have a poll number, I can call it in, it'll be a lot faster.
Okay.
So if you can just tell me where it is, I'll go out and find out what poll number it is.
Okay, it's here, it's in the Bend on Main Road near where Dr. Cummings' office is. When we went to the manger thing, we walked from Dr. Cummings' office to the manger thing, it's pitch black and the sidewalks are like this. And it's a curve, You need, like, for the cars and for pedestrians. It's very, very dangerous that there's no light there.
It's probably out.
Increasing the budget here.
No, actually.
Yeah, another light off somewhere else.
No, because here's the little secret about streetlights. So Mrs. O'Dell may actually be doing us a huge favor, because if that light is out, if it hasn't been turned off, if it's out, we get no value, but we still pay for it. We energize that stick all the way up to the lamp, and you pay for it, and you pay the maintenance fee, which is the huge, almost 50% of what we pay on streetlights is a maintenance fee that Grid passes on to the municipalities. And so when we talk about buying streetlights, what we're talking about is working through the league or working through, even on our own, to purchase the appliance and no longer pay for that maintenance fee. And then once you have the appliance under your control, you can decide what kind of light bulb you put in it and the pace at which you replace those light bulbs with more energy efficient fixtures. There's been a lot of analysis of this. We would be able to pay for the appliances and recognize payback beginning in year 2, which is, if you have financial background, that's a pretty extraordinary pace for payback. And if we went to LED lights and more environmentally friendly and they're properly shielded, we would cut down on the washout of light upwards, directed all downwards, and save a lot of money on the energy piece of it. So that's very much a project I'm working on.
But National Grid would still be responsible, take care of maintenance, blowing down.
No, that pole comes down, the town of Tiverton has to figure out how to.
So we'd have to set up a separate
There would
maintenance.
need to be some fund for that, but it would be nowhere near what we pay for maintenance. And as everybody knows, utilities love to layer loading into all these little pockets of, so this is one place where my friend Joe Policina is very colorful and very enjoyable to listen to him talk about how National Grid takes us to the cleaners on these lights.
Well, hopefully, if the town gets into business of maintaining streetlights, we'll find a private contractor and not hire more town employees to do that.
You're absolutely correct, and that is how the project is structured.
Yep.
Then that's where the league comes in, or PRISM, which is the group. We have a shared service agreement, we go out to bid together, we get one contractor that handles us, and this has been very successfully implemented across the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. We have a lot to learn from our neighbors, but they've been doing this for years and saving substantial sum.
If I could ask an overall question, where is the council taking the final vote on the final budget? No, I didn't think so.
No. I don't think we're scheduled out until the 28th of February. That was the discussion at the last council meeting. I just want to clarify one thing here, because I know people have talked about it, and I don't know the status of the conversation. When you open your electricity bill at home, you get one bill, most people get one bill. And you'll notice it's got electricity generation, distribution, and all the charges in it. And if you pay careful attention, it's for a past period. So you don't pay ahead on your lights, you pay for, or for your electricity, you pay in past usage. So what happened to the town last year was we got the fourth quarter bill after the end of the fiscal year. So you see this transfer that occurred early this fiscal year, but it was last fiscal year's money. So 155 that was budgeted fell short of what we actually needed to pay our electric bill for our streetlights. And so the treasurer and I had a conversation, and she said, how do you want to present this to the public? And I said, I'd rather not have the account run into the red. Transfer the money you need to, show the actual spending on the streetlights, and show that you didn't actually spend on whatever it is you transferred the money out of to pay the bill. But the bill was retro to the fiscal year, so the auditor wouldn't allow us to pay for last year's electrical usage in this fiscal year. So it's not a transfer for this fiscal year. It's important for people to understand that. And I know either way on how to present that, but I chose to present it in a way where the account didn't run into the red. The other part of this is the town doesn't get just one bill. All of these streetlights and all of our buildings run many, many different bills, and we purchase our power through direct energy, and we get all of our distribution through National Grid. Direct energy is one of the most poorly run entities. They bill us haphazardly many months late, and so it should come as no surprise if you follow a payment pattern with direct energy that we're always catching up. At the end of the fiscal year before we close books, we have to make sure that we've paid direct energy for that entire electrical usage for that year. So there's a reconciliation of that we got to that transfer.
My only question on that was the fact that in the minutes for the town council agenda, where it said it had been for the FY14, it never actually said what date it was paid on. It said it had been paid previously, but the date wasn't there. I think the date should have been in there. Just for the record.
Sure, you're right. Yeah, so that people would
It's very
understand it.
confusing because there was no date.
The first thing I said to now Councilman Perry, at the time Budget Committee Chairman Perry, was that I had screwed up in the verbiage that I used in the agenda request and the way I described it, but ultimately that is what happened. We had more expenses than we had money in the budget line for streetlights for that fiscal year.
Could you tell, if you're not happy with direct energy, why are we using them?
No, I'm actually very happy with them. The rate,
Hazard or something?
yeah, but they can bill me late if they want, because you know what? That's their money.
Okay.
They're banker to me.
Clear that up, I wasn't sure
Yeah.
what you were stating on
Yeah,
that.
you want to let me play with your money for a couple of months, I'm happy to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. How much money should we give ourselves?
We should have at least
500.
500.
I'd just like it to cover
Nancy's
the,
not. Yeah.
I'd like it to cover the videoing at least, right?
I think that we should cover the videoing, and we should give some consideration, not right at the moment, but give some consideration to getting some staff support, because we can't just keep piling stuff on the town clerk. And there's a certain amount of clerical work and computer work that needs to be done.
We've asked for that in the past, we never get it.
Well, it's time to get it. That's all there is to it.
Most definitely agree.
Because,
Suppose we increased it to 1,200.
Yeah, I was just going to say, 500 was enough.
Sounds good.
Well,
I'm going to see what
Got a
funding.
justification for it?
yeah, what would
I
the
mean,
justification, I mean, the
What's the justification?
Well, the justification is,
Dollar needed.
the justification is that we're no longer...
Such as?
Excuse me, if I can give you the answer, the justification simply is that we no longer have a very small budget where we can have a few volunteers on the budget committee. It's now complex, the reporting requirements are more complex, and the degree of scrutiny is more complex, and we need to professionalize the budget committee. We've got a multi-million-dollar business that we've stepped forward to monitor, and I think we deserve the support.
so I'm just thinking from a number perspective. So 250 is 510, that's 5 meetings
Yep.
of video.
Yep.
So we meet how many Thursdays?
Well, that varies a little bit.
12, so another 5. So if we had 500, it would cover 10 meetings at the just exorbitant price for that nice young man.
For the record, she's being facetious.
So then the proposal would be to add on an additional $500 to pay for
Some
minutes,
some
taking
clerical
minutes.
support, spreadsheet work, whatever we need. I don't think, what was
We
it,
know who was going
$12.50?
to print up or do the final copy
Well,
of this?
that's where I was just going to jump into what Cecil said. That was a question that I had wrestled with last night for a while.
In the past,
I don't know what I don't know what Laura went through putting the budget document together.
Thank you for not saying docket.
Okay.
I think it is for
But
the publication.
I'm just going to be absolutely honest. I'm not sure how much I'm interested in doing is grunt clerical work. I've put budgets together on spreadsheets many years, and as you keep putting numbers in, it starts to get pretty complex and very difficult to track a typo or an input error. And then to do it right, and I think Laura has done it this way, is you create all sorts of
Double checks.
double checks, algorithms to carry stuff forward.
And make sure the lines tie out, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
And populate
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it's,
some summary columns in cells, and it gets pretty damn time consuming.
Right, but doesn't mean you don't do it, because it is that way. You
I
make
didn't-
sure we get the help to do it. That's why I think it's
No,
what you alluded to.
I didn't say not do it. I said I'm not looking forward to doing it, and I would think there's got to be some other way to do that.
Well, I think
But-
I don't know what I'm getting at is I think 750 might be sufficient. I don't think we need to make the leap to 1,000.
Well,
In my own mind, can't rationalize,
$500 increase.
I can't.
Well, I can
I agree.
easily. So,
Ask the employee to take notes and...
That's right.
You're going to be looking at it,
yeah.
I think 1,000 is,
No, you're probably right.
And we're worth 1,000, Louise.
pardon me?
We're worth 1,000.
No, I don't know about that far.
And there should be a salary.
That's right. I agree with that too, Louise.
But I think we're worrying about pennies when we need to get to the treasurer, who is, it's
Okay.
now 8:45 at night.
I
Oh, good
agree.
Lord.
She probably has better things to do with her evening.
Oh goody, the treasurer.
The treasurer, this is what we've been waiting for.
You're up. Thank you for putting up with us.
For waiting so patiently.
That's okay. Can you hear me? Okay.
Treasurer.
We're going to do my budget first?
Sure.
Okay. Well, I don't really have a very large budget, and I'm happy to report that over the last 3 years, it's dropped from 201 to 198 to 191. And we're still getting the job done.
Are you losing an employee?
No, I actually, last year, shared a full-time employee, and she moved upstairs to the clerk's office. So I hired a new employee for 16 hours a week, and she came in at the $3 less an hour. She's worth her weight in gold.
Great. Great.
Well, there's not much change in your budget, is there?
No.
Except a decrease in the staff side. Cool. Very good.
Makes it easy.
Can I ask, I know you're sitting in the audience, and I neglected to ask it before because we didn't have any department heads. What have you built into the budget for department head raises? I'm looking at Matt. 2%? Okay.
Madam Treasurer?
Yes.
You weren't here when I discussed this with the town administrator, but in looking at refinancing, the one refinancing that we could do next year, in the next fiscal year, is the $3.7 million.
The high school.
Have you had any conversations with Rybeck about that?
No, I have not.
Would you? And I'll tell you why. And here was my thought, okay? You have, as I look at the amortization schedule for those, that particular issue, principal of 190 is paid 5/15/2016. Coupon 4%. Now, if we were to refinance, because we can do it, May 15th of 2016. Okay?
Because it's been 10 years.
It's been 10 years.
Okay.
All right. So, on that issue, if we were to refinance, pay off that principal payment with the refunding the new money, chances are it would be at a lower rate anyway.
Absolutely.
Substantially is a 4%. And it's interesting, as you look at that issue, the rates go 4% and then they climb to 5%.
Right.
And then they never get below 4 again.
Right.
So my suggestion would be to have a conversation now. And because if that were to occur, we could make a principal payment in the following fiscal year at a lower rate.
Right.
That could have substantial savings next year as we climb out of our Justin Katz deficit, and I'll say that. So I think that is really worth, and I think it's a Rybeck issue, and I think it does say that on that date, you can call the bonds May 15th.
My thought was to look at doing them all together just to minimize the cost of the bond refinance. But I'll have to see what the difference is between doing that one, because that's the smallest issue.
That's the smallest issue, but you can't do the others, because the call rates are like May 15th, 17, 18, and 19.
18 and I have 18 and 19.
Yeah.
Right. So I was kind of thinking ahead that, once we got to that date, we could do it, but most certainly can talk to them about it.
Also, because there may be other communities that went out at that time. I think there were 3 or 4.
There was 3.
And they may, if they haven't already,
Right.
begun conversations with Rybeck, because I think it's really worth exploring. And the expenses come out of the bond issue anyways.
Right.
So is your thinking that this could,
Free up.
for next fiscal year's budget?
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
It could be, that short amount of time, we can go, in theory, you could get the bonds refinanced?
Oh, Lord, yes.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of time now, there's a lot of lead time. The other question I had for them and for bond counsel is, we get reimbursed, was it 30% for the school construction? Sally's never got it to 40?
No.
Well, again this year.
Okay. Okay. Whether on a refunding issue through Rybeck,
Does that change?
does that in any way affect it? I would think the state would have an interest, because they're paying the interest too.
Right.
So you would think that it'd be a win-win situation for everyone. Well, I know, but they got a major league deficit at the state level, so you would think they would be interested in lowering their costs.
Absolutely. I'll let you know.
Okay, I mean, we have a little time here, but,
Well, the plan was to look at them all together, but I'll start with that one.
yeah, and we're not going to be able to do that, because the first call date is exactly, May 15th and 17, 18, and 19, and at the same time, we are paying.
Oh, I see what you mean. You wouldn't be able to do them all together anyway.
Right.
You'd have to wait till...
We'd have to wait until the first call date.
That they all are falling out.
They all call date. Yeah, so that, and some would have some major, much larger savings. Hold on, let me just, I think I'm pretty right on that. So, anyway. Okay, so you get,
I will, oh, sure.
yeah.
Can I ask about the library bond?
Sure.
How, 2 steps back, 5 steps back. The cost of the project, the total cost of the project is
11 million.
11 million.
And change.
11 million and change. And how much of that is privately funded?
4 million.
4 million. Okay, so
We're
there's...
talking round numbers, but yeah, it's a little more
okay.
than 4 million.
So 7 million...
Is what we went out to bond.
7 million is what we went out to bond. Okay, so the privately funded portion of the construction cost is being paid separately from the bond.
Completely separate.
Okay, so we went out and got a bond for what the town is paying for the library. And a certain amount of that is being reimbursed by the Office of Library Information Services. And that will go into effect if we get a certificate of occupancy on yada yada date.
Right.
So when we see this, will we see, at what point will we see the gross bond cost and the reimbursement?
Next year. It should be in here. You will see, this 216 should have been the gross number.
Okay.
Okay, that's what we've been saying all along.
That's what we were saying before you got here.
And then we'll see
And then you'll
that,
see the revenue, just like we do the school construction aid.
Right.
You see the gross bond debt.
right,
On the expense side, you see the expected revenue aid on the revenue
Okay.
side.
okay, good, thank you.
And that will be,
Now, it would be really nice if Miss Sally Black got it at 40% this year, wouldn't it?
Yes,
oh,
it would.
yeah.
Going up
that would be-
again, Mr. Fiore and Mr. Edwards and I have attended everything, we're already on the calendar.
So if, how does the timing on this work if the certificate of occupancy isn't granted? What is the drop dead date for getting that certificate in order to get reimbursed next year? And if we don't get reimbursed next year, what happens?
I believe the drop dead date to get reimbursed next year is 6/30.
Yeah, 6/30.
June 30th.
Yeah, right.
What would happen, I mean, it's not going to prevent us from being able to pay the debt service. I would just have to set up a receivable, because once we got the certificate, then I'm going to know exactly what they're going to be sending us. And it would just, and they typically like to reimburse you, I think, 30 days before the due date of the bond, so that you have the money in hand to make the bond payment. I don't think that that would change.
So in other words, if the certificate of occupancy is doled out on July 30th,
It could
we
just,
don't have to wait till the following fiscal year to get the reimbursement?
I do not believe so, no.
Okay.
Do you have,
I thought they said that we'd be 2 years, we'd have to pay 2 years of the estates. Us when they came.
Mr. Chair, may I?
Yes, please.
It was represented during the library construction proposal meetings. There was a gentleman here from Olus, and he represented to the council seat sitting at the time that reimbursement was 1 year behind. There was no consideration given to a certificate of occupancy. The first time I heard of early certificate of occupancy being April 30, being reimbursed the same year, the first time I heard that was less than a month ago, when the 216 net payment was listed as the bond payment instead of the 545,000 and change, which is the actual bond payment.
25.
Maybe the thing to do, if you could, is to...
Yeah, I'll clarify that, but it's not like we lose any of the aid.
Right.
No, it's when you get it.
It's when we get it.
Right.
But we would still get the 20 years, the principal and the interest.
It's just a matter of bridging, where would that money come from for those initial debt service payments?
Oh, yeah, well,
That's what I'm a little concerned about.
I'm not concerned about that.
You're not concerned about
No,
that?
no, we have excellent liquidity.
Right. So your thinking is that if it comes in a couple of weeks late and we don't make the June 30th deadline, then Olus will give us the money shortly thereafter, so it's no big deal.
I will go back and reread that.
Can you confirm that?
And confirm
Because there
that.
seems to be some confusion about that. That would be helpful if we could get it in writing that...
As far as I know, the last time I spoke to the building committee, that they are ahead of schedule.
Right.
And they're expecting it this spring.
You know, it would be really
And that was
nice...
the goal. The goal was if we could wrap it all up by 6:30, and it would just all fit nicely in how we had planned everything.
It would be really nice if the Olus representative, or we could have a schedule that...
We'll have a schedule once we have that CO.
Well,
I know, yeah.
A preemptive, not a preemptive, but an early schedule that says, if this arrives on June 30th, this is when we'll have the payments. If it arrives on this date, this is when we'll have the payments. I think would go a long way towards assuaging my concerns, everyone's concerns. Bueno.
But anyway, in the docket, we definitely have to put the gross in.
Oh, absolutely.
is there a prospectus in the library issue in the treasurer's, in the town clerk's office? Preliminary offering statement? There should be.
There should be. I have copies downstairs.
I think would like a copy.
Oh, sure. You want it tonight, right now?
Sure.
Okay, do you want me to finish first?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Can I ask...
Look, I can get up right now there.
For the possible refinancing of the school bonds, because what is our debt rating now on the new library bond?
It was a...
2 point something.
Oh, the interest rate.
No, not the interest rate, the Moody's, our bond rating.
Stable AA.
Stable AA. And what is the rating that we had when we went out for the school bonds?
That was, we didn't get a rating. The rating that
Oh, because it went through RIBAC.
That went through RIBAC, so it was a state rating.
It was the state rating.
You know,
Okay, so it shouldn't have,
Relatively the same.
so it shouldn't have.
you know, it was, they did rate the bonds, I remember.
They rated the bonds.
They rated the bond, and they rated the communities that were part of that, because I have a memorandum in my files at my house, that a memorandum, a copy of the memorandum was sent by Jim Amarantes, and saying that we did get a rating, and it was not what Portsmouth was, it's the same position as, and it was,
It was A2.
yeah, I think it was A2.
And it was Moody's.
And it was Moody's,
Not S&P.
exactly. It was
Yeah.
A2, it was Moody's, and Portsmouth at the time had an A1.
It was like 2007.
And you know, as you look at the refinancings that we'll probably do, unless the Federal Reserve sends our rates off into in orbit, but getting our capital up is critical, to be critical to this town, because it will affect our rate as we refinance. And so if we need any more arguments about not taking money out of the unrestricted surplus, that is one.
Well, we were downgraded, correct? I mean, the rating on.
Well, we didn't get upgraded, and we should be.
Yeah.
You know, we should have that AAA rating. Shouldn't we?
I would think so, but they rated us on those 7 areas. And
Exactly, yeah.
And we got,
7 areas though, wasn't just one.
right.
Yeah, but that's one of that is the biggest. It is the biggest.
But that was money that shouldn't have been there because people were overtaxed, Louise.
Well, that's,
Donna, let me tell you, that is not what the rating agencies will say to this town or to
It
you.
shouldn't have been there, Louise, and you're the one that brought it up.
well,
It shouldn't have been there.
Well,
You can't call it a deficit because it shouldn't have been there because you overtaxed.
that's a matter of perspective that has unfortunately already been decided by a vote.
What my question was is this, so the rating, our current rating, if we refinance this year, will it receive the same, I mean,
I don't know. I don't know if we would even have to go out for another rating if it was in a shorter period of time. Because even though we did the rating, and that was as of, I think it was December 3rd was the date. They were on a watch list. So could be every 6 months, every year, I have to let them know of any material changes that occur in any one of those areas that they rated us on. Like I have to send them our financials, and they keep in contact with us. We had to do that once before. They just do an update. We do a very lengthy phone conversation, and they just kind of get a feel for what's going on, and I have to send them the financials, send them any of the continuing disclosures, and they can, at that point, determine if, hey, something's going on in Tiverton and we want to take a look, and they reserve the right to adjust the rating. So I don't know if they would do one of those kind of exercises if we were to refinance so soon after we just got a bond rating. It would save us a little bit of money, but who knows?
okay.
Yeah, I think more problematical is what Louise already referred to, is what does the Federal Reserve do?
Right.
Yes.
Because if you listen to all the smart money down in New York City, I always wonder if they're so smart, how come they're still working? But anyway, if you listen to the smart money, the feds are going to raise rates probably May or June. But I wouldn't bet the rent money on that estimate. So that may drive things more than a rating.
We'll have to see what just like you refinance anything.
Yeah, you got to look at what the situation is at the time.
Right.
And it sounds like we've got some great potential to make some serious cost reduction.
Obviously the jury's out, but
we sure have to plow that ground because the reward would be very good.
Yeah.
Well, the reward is what leads me to my next question, and I don't know if you're the appropriate person to ask, but has anyone run the math on how much in the hole we are?
in the hole we are.
Meaning that-
It's really hard to tell because it changes. I mean, every day that we pay a bill, it changes.
No. I mean, I'm not stating it correctly. What I'm getting at is if we were able to refinance the bond. Last year, we had $600,000 in the general fund that the voters chose to use to offset a tax increase. That tax increase was to pay for expenses that were in the budget, and that was approved. It was just that the voters chose to pull money out and pay for it that way. So this year, those expenses are still there.
Right.
We're increasing those expenses, and we need to come up with a way to cover that $600,000. So has anyone run the math? It will show up, as it did in prior years, as a loss of revenue. So has anyone run the math to see how close we are to the 4%?
I have not done that yet.
Because if, last year it was a little over 1.5 million was the maximum amount we could increase. So if we're looking at 600,000 plus 200 whatever thousand for the library, plus whatever the school is, and I'm assuming we have no magic revenue stream. Has anyone run those numbers yet?
The 4% is the increase on the levy.
Maximum tax levy? No one's run those numbers yet? No. Okay.
Scared to.
Yeah. Yeah. Because, it just seemed, off the top of my head, it seems like...
That's why I was pushing the focus, on to see if that could help.
Well, we need to find a big chunk of change to avoid having a hefty tax increase.
Thank you.
And if we can refinance and get it down by a couple $100,000...
It would help.
It would help, but we're still looking at a big increase, unless everything is flat.
Right, but that's not even going to occur until the following year.
Well, if that principal payment, I have the amortization schedule. It shows 190 on June, hold on a minute.
Oh, I just have it by year.
Okay, hold on. I don't want to hold everybody up, but I think, hold on. 3/7. I have 515, 190,000. Coupon, 4%, 48,000. And then...
Oh, you're saying the 516 payment.
Exactly, which is the big payment. If we could, use the new money to pay that.
So you're thinking a couple of hundred?
Yeah.
Potential.
Yeah, potential, yeah. So
That would certainly help.
it would help.
Yeah?
Okay, I guess we beat that horse enough, huh?
Yes. Are we done with the audit? Have you presented the audit to the council?
It got postponed because of the snowstorm.
Oh, okay. I'll anxiously await my copy. We should all get copies. We got them last year, so that would be...
I had to make like 30 copies.
Oh, perfect. Perfect. Thank you.
Be a nighttime reading.
Yeah. Well, you know how I do love it. It's sick to say, but I do. Yeah.
Come on, it's interesting reading.
Yeah. Well,
Some of us think it's interesting reading.
Mr. Chairman, I found the police pension valuation report. How many copies should I? Who wants one?
11.
How many?
11.
11.
That would be great.
Denise?
Yes.
since he just brought it up.
That's right.
One of the you may have to get back to us.
Yes.
Washington Trust and the takeover of the police pension. Do you recall now what the year-end figure was, or the value, the market value of the...
As of 12/31?
Yes.
I don't recall that.
Okay. Let me give you this figure.
Okay.
12/8/13, Bank of America was $8,717,000.
Say that again?
8,717,000, and I put down 000, I think this was like 500 or so. What I am interested in is what their record has been in the market for a year.
Okay.
Year-end figure.
I can send that to you.
That would be good, because it's on our schedule to have, police pension is on the agenda
Yes.
for next week.
And the proposal is 700,000 versus last year, which I can appreciate because of the deficit we find ourselves in.
Given the market performance lately, hopefully that number has gone up very nicely.
I hope so.
If it
Was on the increase.
If it hasn't gone up, given the market rate increase, we're in trouble.
No, they had excellent results through the last meeting.
Mhm.
We had the last meeting? The pension plan?
The whole meeting in September where we did all the actuarial review.
The Washington Trust results.
Update the following quarter.
But we had the
Year-end, you'd have year-end reports.
Oh, I do have the year-end
Yeah.
reports, I just don't
Have
remember
really-
what it is.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I have only one problem with the Treasurer's budget, and I want to be delicate because I don't want to tread on Madam Treasurer's prerogative. I would like to see the personal service line increase from fiscal year 15 to 16. I think that it's, I think 1.5% would be minimal. I think if the municipal department heads are going 2% would not be out of order. I think that it's, again, that's your prerogative.
What page are you on?
Page you want, Cece?
Page 9, the treasurer's budget.
I'm looking at this document.
Yes, but it's on page 9. It is,
So anyway, I've said my piece, and that's your call. It's not mine. But I think there's got to be a recognition of the value, not only of yourself, but also of the position.
Yeah.
And earlier the administrator was talking about how we get caught with our firefighters, we train them and then they leave. And it's not exactly equal, but there is some
No, Laura brought that up
Last year.
and said you need to elevate.
Yeah.
well, it's already underpaid. The position is already underpaid.
Yes, it is.
And
It's not commensurate with the responsibilities
no,
the
it is
treasurer's
not at
office
all
has.
commensurate. And if we lose you, I don't want to see a, $30,000, $40,000 increase in that line because we haven't been keeping pace.
Which we've seen recently with the
Well,
building
which is
official.
why the DPW director is getting paid more than the police chief. It's just ludicrous.
There is
So,
competition.
in the spirit of why we have that new line item on the agenda, do you want to take a series of provisional votes on what we talked about tonight?
Are we
Oh.
done with Madam Treasurer?
Did you have something that you wanted?
No, I'm good. Yeah, my budget's easy.
So you didn't have anything that you wanted to bring to our attention or anything?
For my budget? No.
Okay.
Wonderful.
Does anybody have any questions for me?
I think I have exhausted my questions.
Kind of makes it easier for the end.
Me too.
Okay. I will get you. Does everyone have email, or do you want me to just send the stuff to
Send it to
you?
John,
Send it to John, and you
and
can
he
circulate?
can
He's
get it.
good. Okay, let's move on, guys.
Thanks much, Denise.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Can I make a provisional vote to approve the town council total recommended budget of $207,800? I would like to make a motion to provisionally approve the administrator's recommended
I'll second that motion.
$207,800 for town council.
Second.
Second. Are you writing this down, Cecil?
No, we went too fast.
right, so let me-
You write it down and I'll talk to you later.
I'll just put it right here. I'll put it right next to
Yeah,
it.
and then
Motion,
I'll catch you up later.
LD second.
Can we, I missed out on that, would you repeat that again, please?
Per our discussion last week doing provisional votes.
Okay.
So I'm making a motion to provisionally approve the administrator's recommended budget for the council of $207,800. All the way over the right.
I have an issue.
Well then, it's a provisional vote.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So vote no.
Mr. Chair?
I'm going to vote no.
Call the vote. Call the vote. All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
3.
3. Wait, okay, let me, somebody's got to write this down.
5-3.
5-3.
Donna, Madeline, DMN.
Okay, next, Laura?
Provisionally approve budget for the town administrator of $166,401.
I'll second that.
All in favor? Unanimous?
Yep.
Okay, let me just write down LD, unanimous. And I'm saying this out loud so somebody can remind me of my chicken scratches. Provisionally approve the town administrator's recommended budget of $262,000 for the legal services budget.
Abstain.
All those in favor? All those
7-0, one
opposed?
extension.
Right. So unanimous except for Madeline abstaining. What else do we do? Next comes the treasurer on page 9. I'll make a motion to, I don't know how I want to phrase this. I want to increase the salary 2%. Let's do that first. To provisionally increase the salary of the treasurer by 2%.
Salary being listed as a description of personal services.
Department management salary.
Yeah, you got a different page.
It's department management salary.
Laura, I thought you gave her a raise last year.
240, 5100.
Here, though.
Yes, it is.
I'm looking at the account, it's very clear.
Yeah, because she doesn't give herself a raise.
Okay.
She cannot give her, I mean, she can ask for a raise, but she works for the citizens, the elected. She's an elected official.
I just have a question.
If we don't recommend a raise, no one else will. Well, you can by petition.
I'm just
No,
wondering. What is
the treasurer,
the clerk, town clerk
Mr.
here?
Chairman, the treasurer can recommend a pay increase anytime they want.
Right.
But the only thing that controls them is good sense, and without them, we have to stand for election.
Right. The clerk's salary increase, I believe, was 3%.
Yeah, and the clerk can do the same thing.
2% increase would be $1,219.50.
Yeah. She can.
Correct my,
Say it again?
$1,219.50. Let's round that up to 220. 1,220.
So, all right, so how about this for a motion? I can't even see, how can I
I
add?
think she should speak.
9,
67,
5,
195.
11,
Maybe we should
1.
provisionally vote that she should request a
Yeah,
raise.
she needs to request what
Yeah,
she wants.
well, we can.
Well, we can- We don't have to wait for that.
I think we should put it in because I don't think she will.
I'll make a,
It's easier if we do it.
okay.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to approve the budget for the treasurer at $192,159, which includes a $1,220 increase in the treasurer's salary.
Second.
Cecil seconded that?
Yep.
No, 1,220. 1220.
Yes, 1220.
Will somebody check my math? 191,839 plus 1220.
How come it says 1.5% here? Is that 1.5% or 2%?
No, 1.5%.
It's 193, right, as Joe,
That was just.
it's 193, 193,059. Right.
Thank you. All right.
What are the other department heads doing?
All right, so that a motion is amended to be 193,159.
So am I.
Seconded?
Yes.
Any discussion? All in favor? All opposed?
Only because she doesn't get elected again.
Wait, now, what did I do the last time?
5-3,
DMN.
5-3.
okay. Okay, Laura, keep going.
Insurance, I'll make a motion to provisionally approve $2,499,800. It's the next page. Page 10.
Provisionally. Okay.
$2,499,800.
I'll second.
Seconds. All in favor?
All in favor?
I'm sorry.
Any opposed? Unanimous.
Audit of town accounts, provisionally approved $22,000.
Second.
All in favor? No opposed? Carries.
I'm going to skip that one because it's just a one-line item.
Social Security.
Social Security, no, pensions next week. Social Security,
It's going to keep changing, maybe we should.
Yeah, I was going to say, what?
yeah, okay.
But Social Security isn't anything we can really do anything about. It's what it is.
Yeah, but we need to.
There's a lot of things we can't do anything
No,
about.
I know,
We take
but-
provisional votes on them anyways.
But we should, on the Social Security, we should wait till it falls
Yes,
to the bottom.
you're right.
At the very end.
So do the unemployment.
10,000 for unemployment security, a provisionally approved recommendation of 10,000 for unemployment security.
Second.
All, yeah. So I'm going to wait on this.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? No.
Unfunded liability, provisionally approved $55,000, as recommended by the town administrator.
Second.
Oh, different second, LEMD. Okay,
All in favor?
aye.
All opposed? None.
Somebody else is going to have to make a, well, okay. Budget committee, I make a motion to provisionally approve 1,000 for a budget committee total dollars.
Was it 1,000 or 1,250?
I thought it was 1,250.
I thought it was 1,000.
1,200.
I thought it was 250, so 750.
Can I make the motion?
I thought it was a 750 increase, but
I jotted down 1,250 based on the 1,000 increase to the 250 that was there.
that's fine, man.
What does he want?
Whatever.
1,250.
1,250.
Yeah, add 1,000 to the 250 that was already put there.
Okay.
All right, so I'm making a motion to provisionally approve 1,250 for budget committee budget for fiscal year 2016. Oh, no, another initials, ND.
What happened after 500?
All in favor?
Aye,
That's unanimous.
it's provisional.
They're all provisional.
Yeah. Okay, I
And
got,
those unanimous?
Yes.
yeah, I said get my dog.
What else?
Streetlights. You know, everybody always thinks it's a slush fund, and it is not. Provisionally approve, a motion to provisionally approve $185,500 for the streetlight account 6745 for fiscal year 2016.
185.5.
Typed over, page 15.
Streetlights.
Second.
LELD.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None?
I gotta go.
Okay.
I gotta go, Joe.
And that was it.
Does that do it for tonight?
That, for those.
For tonight's presentations?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Stand adjourned?
Thank you.
No, I got other things here on the agenda.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry. The police department can't make it next week.
This week, Saturday?
Are we going Saturday? Do
Well-
they even know about it? Do they know about it, John?
Yeah, they do.
Okay.
But the police chief has a commitment that he can't break on the 19th. So I'm not sure as of right now if we're going to do the site visit.
Okay.
My sense is if we're not doing this visit, delay the site visit until just before we do the police budget.
Yes, that's how it is
Okay,
usually.
So we're not doing.
So we're not doing Saturday site visit, and I mentioned to Matt I needed to know, tomorrow or over the weekend what the swap is going to be, because I left it up to them to arrange the swap. I didn't care who they swapped with.
Okay.
The site, as far as I know, the fire department site visit and budget presentation is still the same on the 21st site visit and the 26th budget hearing. So
Okay.
those are still good as far as I know.
Okay.
So if we switch out the police department, someone else will be on the agenda for
Yes, there'll
that.
be somebody on the agenda, and I have to have the information in order to get the budget posted, so.
Right, but we can still do the police pension and the other municipal pensions, and the harbor master, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
unless it's somebody big. I can't imagine another big budget unless they switch with DPW.
But if we do DPW, we can still do the police
But we-
pensions
but we can do
and
the
the
pensions.
pensions. I mean, the pensions,
Yeah.
I would like to tackle, because they often
Yeah.
need follow-up.
Do we need the chief here for that?
Matt is the chairman of
Well, it's not going to be.
No, it's fine if chief, I mean, we've done it years past without chief for the,
Well, the town administrator is the chairman of the pension.
right.
You got yours?
Yep.
Yes, I've got mine. Do you have yours?
Yep.
Here's mine and ours. What else was on the agenda?
Well, the other thing that was on the agenda, if we wanted to do it tonight, or we wait till next week, is to do the same provisional voting for all the previous budget presentations. Now, if you want to hold them off for a night when it's a shorter meeting, that's fine.
Yes.
Yeah. Rules committee, I thought something, I think Louise, you want to make a motion to adjourn?
Can we approve the minutes first?
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'll make the motion, we approve the minutes.
Yes,
Yes, passed around earlier.
Second it.
I'll second it.
Lisa?
Approve the minutes from Thursday, February 5th's meeting as prepared by our lovely secretary. Thank you very much, Deborah Janet.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed, none?
And she did a very good job.
She does nice.
Now you can
Motion to adjourn, Louise?
Yes, motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second. Yippee, unanimous, right?